Thank you, Mark. All right. Today is August 8th and it's 2022. It is 6:08. And I'm calling the Committee of the Whole Board of Education, Groton Board of Education to order, which is the first call to order. The second thing is I would like to, at the end, add a quick discussion. I did not catch this and I am so very sorry. Is just to talk about process for our interviewing for the vacancy for the candidate position. So I just need, I think I need 2/3 of a yes for us to be able to add it to, this is a regular committee of the whole meeting, so it's not a special meeting. I'm just wondering, are people in favor of that?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who is opposed to that? All right, thank you. And so that will be our new number 6. 7 will be adjournment.
Em, you need a second.
I'll second it.
Thank
Rita.
you.
Thank you, Miss Joan.
Are you going to do that after suggested future topics?
Yes, or it's either gonna be, I'm gonna put in number 6 right before we do adjournment. That's fine, because that's what I've said. Okay, and so the second is the approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of July 18th. Can I have a motion for acceptance? I have Liz. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Andrea has seconded it. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the approval of the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of July 18th, please say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? That motion has carried. As you did note, we have moved this to be a shorter, more condensed so that we could hit our second meeting at 7 o'clock. So, but we are going to be hearing some information about K-5 reading data. And I believe that that's why Tom and Susan are both here.
That's right.
You're always here, but Tom gets to join us.
It is interesting. This is the data in reading that we use for our children in really grades K through 5. It's also very useful at the middle school and can be used all the way to adulthood and teenage. So our reading.
Hey, Susan, can I ask you right off the bat, what does F&P stand for?
Absolutely, great question. Fountas and Pinnell. Irene Fountas and Gesu Pinnell. Fountas is from Lesley University, and Gesu Pinnell is from Ohio State. And they were early on innovators of this kind of assessment, and also teaching strategies with guided reading and really understanding what are the instructional levels at each grade level that teachers need to be teaching students reading, at, and then also what are the independent levels that children can read on their own. And they need to have lots of time to be reading on their own. They need to be read to. It's so important that parents are doing read alouds, and we're doing read alouds in school. And then the instruction, when it happens, it typically happens sometimes in a mini lesson for the whole group, but it'll also happen in small group. Sometimes it even happens one-on-one when the teacher is conferring and sitting right by the child. And besides the 3 times a year that we give this particular assessment, we do something called running records. And in the lower grades, K through 2, that is happening kind of all the time because children move up in the levels. The levels are A to Z, and they really move up by grade 3 to LMNOP. So, they really accomplish a lot of growth. And the thing about the F&P is we do it 3 times a year, but the expectation is different each time of year. In order to make growth, let's say in 1st grade, to get to a JK, that children start out, sometimes at an CDE, so that 1st grade is such a huge growth. and it changes over the course of the year. It's kind of a moving target. So when you get ready to look at the graphs, you'll say, well, boy, it seems like the same percentage at the end of the year as it was in the beginning. But that's good because that means that on the higher level, they're still at the goal. So that means they've made measured growth. And then I thought these guidelines were really pretty cool. I would like to actually put them up for our parents to see and have our teachers speak to this, during conferences. Maybe even be able to hand these out to parents and be able to explain what level their children are reading at and what are some of the books in the middle. You see all the different kinds of books that kids are reading at this level. And what are some of the questions that parents and teachers can be asking to really build up their comprehension? So besides this level of teaching and assessment, comprehension is really big, but we also monitor the word attack that children are doing, the decoding. So the phonics is very important, especially in the K through 2, 3 levels. And it also is important when they're writing, with their spelling. So we are very much aware that you have to have, this combination of teaching strategies.
Susan, can I interject? I was just thinking as you were talking, you're saying like the teachers, one of the things, if I remember correctly, was, we used to do like little presentations to parents at night, like, okay, so all the kindergarten or all the lower elementary parents would be invited to this. Maybe instead of having it be on the onus of the school or of the teacher for it to be a district thing, and that we would go and have these little workshops for parents.
Right.
And that might be a little, something for them to become, take that off of their plate, but put it on, our plate type of deal. Just a suggestion, idea.
And I think we were doing a lot of that prior to COVID.
Pre-COVID, I know.
But I don't want to use that as an excuse. We've named it, Kim actually named it, coming back to community. And that's a perfect example of coming back to community. You can do that with literacy, reading and writing. You can do that in math. With the NGSS science standards, it would be wonderful to be able to have a science STEM. And our schools with their magnet themes, I think will be doing much more with that, those either daytime or evening presentations where kids are actually presenting the things they've learned. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
This is just the next parent guide.
Okay, so this is, yep, and then the RST. So this is really kind of late elementary, early middle school, and the kinds of questions that are being asked. What were the major events that led to the problem and the solution? So you see that they're really expanding their talk about it and having more in-depth thinking. They have to show evidence of their thinking from the text that they've read. And that correlates also with the SBAC and what they're asking on the SBAC for comprehension for reading. So that's something I'd love to bring to the board at some point, those kind of SBAC questions. So I'm going to let Tom take over from here to show us the data and the shape of the data. This looks pretty impressive for K.
Yep. So I just want to orient everybody a little bit. What we had tried to do, and obviously it's hard for this kindergarten group, is we wanted to show the last piece of data we had before the COVID pandemic, so you could compare. We're comparing as a rough cohort. So to be clear, we are not tracking who has left and who has stayed in the district over that time. We're just tracking the grade level over time. So it's possible the students within that group have changed slightly as students have kind of come and go throughout the district. But within a rough cohort, that's our tracking. And you'll see that in the next couple slides as those groups have been with us for that long time. Here in the middle column, you'll see this is trimester 2. That's what T2 stands for, 21, 22. So that would have been in late winter, early spring. And then T3 is trimester 3, so the end of the school year. So you can see pretty significant growth with the kindergarten reading scores from the winter to the spring, with almost 63.3% of the students reading at or above grade level. And as Susan said, this is a moving target. So not only are we increasing the number of students who are at or above grade level, we're increasing the rigor that they need to meet.
And the level
that they need to hit Absolutely.
So this might have been more of an AB in the second trimester,
Yep.
but it's a CD in the third.
Exactly.
And they weren't in school, many of them weren't in school full-time in preschool, but they might have missed a year or two of full-time, or part-time education as a preschooler.
Absolutely.
But that's about it. So they were coming in fresh to kindergarten.
Yep, absolutely. And this is roughly in line with what we've seen from other kindergarten groups as well. Grade 1, again, they were not with us during the, in the pandemic year. Here we see a slight decrease. So we had 61% of our students reading at grade level in trimester 2. That did drop to 54%. The largest increase came in our middle band for students just below. So that is one letter below the grade level kind of target. So that's our most significant increase. We had a 2% increase in the students reading more than one level.
And those children were in school, remember, in a hybrid fashion for kindergarten. And before that, they went out in March in preschool. So they had some significant losses.
Absolutely.
Rita,
Rita, did you have a question on this slide?
yeah, so Rita,
I have a question. Yeah, I'm going to start with kindergarten.
Yep.
And, when you look at these things, yeah, there has been an increase in their scores, but we still have 37% of the students not on grade level or above grade level. And the same is true with, it's even greater in first grade, second grade, the whole thing. It's almost very consistent. So what is the staff doing to increase these scores and help the children out that are reading below grade level?
So I would say the best thing that we do is the tiered intervention. And also the first tier is actually in the core instruction. So we have purchased more of the Fountas and Pinnell guided reading, the newest guided reading kits that the classroom teacher can use or reading teacher can come in. So beyond the core, most of our students are getting another level of instruction on top of that. For children who are like in the yellow, and that's for the kids in the green. In the yellow band, I would say that they're getting additional support as well from either an intern or a reading tutor or a reading specialist or interventionist. And then the ones in the red are, either in special education. Remember, we have about 17% of our students who are in special ed, or they might be a 504, or they might just need significant support. So they're getting sometimes 2 additional examples. And then we also have before and after school tutoring and summer tutoring that's occurring. And the math and the literacy specialists are looking at that group of students to see who is in need of that kind of intervention.
It's fairly consistent straight across the board for all the grade levels. It's except when you get to 5th, it's a little discouraging. Only went up to 54.3%. So I mean,
You haven't seen it yet, but
more and more, I feel that our resources need to go, because if you don't become a reader and understand phonetics when you're in K1, 2, and 3, you're going to struggle the whole rest of your time till through 12th grade and beyond. So to me, what we need to do is focus more of our resources on these children to get them at grade level or above. That's just my feeling. Thanks.
thank you, Rita. I'm going to recognize Matthew and then Liz.
I think my speaker is on. Thank you. I share some of the same concerns that Rita does. And, I look at the percentages and I think to myself, what are the human numbers behind the percentages? How many kids are represented across the 3 grades by that just shy of 40% number? And I hear clearly about the 17% that have special circumstances, but we want to bring them along as well. What are reasonable benchmark goals that we're setting to accomplish in the 3 marking periods coming for this year? Rather than just collect statistics, do we have goals, and is there some way we can use goal setting as a motivation?
We actually do that as part of the GED process, which is the evaluative process. The past 2 years have been flexible. They've really zoomed in a lot on social emotional learning, but teachers are very familiar with using goals and goal setting for students. I think when we get to the slides that show what happened in 2019, that gives us a little more of bearings, and especially when we look at SBAC data, because remember, that was the data that the state was coming to us saying we were ready to graduate from Alliance because we had made progress. So you'll see in my goals that really, if we look out to 2024 or 2025, there are expectations from the state when it comes to state data that we're trying to tackle. Those are our goals.
Okay, perhaps I wasn't clear. Thank you for that. That was very helpful. I don't want to thrust a number at you because I'm not qualified to do it, but are you hoping, can we attain 75 or 80% in the green area? Can we drop the red area from, I'm looking at grade 2, from 27% to 15%? I mean, that's what I meant by targets.
Right. Well, that's kind of how we do it, Matthew. We look to decrease the red, decrease the yellow, and really amplify the green. That's what you're hoping to do and accomplish.
Do we have specific benchmarks is my question.
So I think, Matt.
Benchmark goals that by this time, in 5 years, we hope to be 90%. In 4 years, I don't know what the number should be, but do we have benchmarks that we can work towards?
That's something that we're typically setting at the school level or even the classroom level. As Susan alluded to, most of these are set at a smaller level, Matthew. Kind of getting back to the human level as you're talking about. We certainly could set a district overall average, but we've been hesitant to do so over the past couple of years, just based on the fluctuation with the COVID numbers. So we certainly could look to kind of move towards a benchmark that we may have previously set before the pandemic. But typically speaking, we haven't set overall benchmarks for the district level at this time.
Would it be fair to say that now that we have our new elementary level school system, which are not neighborhood schools any longer, but focused schools, that each school can set a benchmark and that the board can know what they are?
Certainly, I think that would be part of the school improvement plan process. The principals will go through this.
Thank you so much.
So Beverly, I'm going to do Liz and then you, okay?
Susan, I was just wondering, can we get a mid-year report as focused on the 2 lower bands to see if those students are moving, how they're progressing? I would like to see, this is from last year, and great, because I know we've been out of the loop and I totally appreciate it. But my concern, one of the concerns I have is, I know you said we're not tracking the students per se or the class, but maybe we need to, especially now to see that, like this grade 2, or whatever grade. Okay, so next year, let's look at grade 3 and compare how they're doing compared to how they did the year before.
So what happens with the principals and their school data team is they are looking at it at a microscopic level. So they're using this data to provide the interventions necessary for children. They're monitoring it. In between these scorings, teachers are doing what they call these running records. And if you were an elementary principal, you probably remember that, where you're really listening to a child read, looking at their accuracy, and then checking for comprehension. So that is going on, and our principals are doing a really fine job in collecting that data and looking at it. So we could certainly have a mid-year check and have them come to show you their improvement plan and where, what it was set out to do and what they're seeing happening for their students.
And also what they feel would be beneficial, or where they need improvement or where they need more support.
And that's probably good doing it during our budget season.
Right, because that's what I was just thinking. If we, because like Rita was saying about resources, if we need to allocate more resources, we need to know where we're shifting monies in order to support our kids. Because I totally agree. If our kids if you can't read, it's just not a good thing.
Can I ask a qualifying question?
Yeah.
So before you had mentioned, I want to be clear, we do track individual students, but it's not showing that here. Would you like to see kind of a student by student, you know, how we would display it necessarily, but say, here are your list of students, here was their levels, or here are all your yellow band students, for example, where do they end up at the end of the year? Is that what you'd like to see?
I would love to see that, but I understand, what I would say is you assign every kid a letter or a number or something like that, so that they, you know, it's not, we don't identify a child.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
No,
I know
we
you
already-
can't do that,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying, but just, I would love to see how, you know, child number 642 starts the year here and how that 642 ends the year over here. I would
Yeah.
love to see that.
We can
because-
certainly do it.
And that's what the principals and teachers are looking
Yeah.
at.
But I think
Yeah.
I would like us
Yeah.
to see it too.
Yeah. Oh, no, and I can show you at a whole district. We can show you every kid in the district. So, yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna recognize Beverly and then Rita. I believe your hand is back up. But Beverly.
Thank you, Kim. I just want
Absolutely.
to say I agree with Rita and Matthew. Especially with Matthew, I like to see the district have some goals, and I like for the board to receive those goals so we know what the goals are. And also, Susan, I'd like to know how much money in our budget are we spending to help these students that are struggling? Maybe you can get that information to me. In our budget, how much money goes towards students that are struggling?
3/4 of that $77 million is for teachers, for tutors, for paraprofessionals, for their benefits. So as I've always said in the budget process, the majority of our funds go to the people who are doing the teaching and the servicing of our children. But if you wanted to look at those tutors and interventionists specifically, those are, and special educators, those are the people who are giving more of the tier 2, tier 3 intervention.
Could you review what tier 2 and
So-
those, but you don't have to do it now.
Okay,
Later on.
yeah. I can go over that SRBI process with you and explain that more.
Okay. All right, for some reason, for years, this isn't something new where we've been struggling with our lower level students and having a hard time moving them forward. We have to get at the root of that problem. What is the root of the problem? Why can't we get these kids moving forward? It was this way like 15 years ago when I was on the board. We continue to have this same problem. And I
would
think we
say
have to
though, in
get the root. To
I
the
would
root of
say
the,
though, in the past several years prior to COVID, when the district was really making some strides and we had 2 blue ribbons in 5 years, we were seeing measured growth. But I think that with this, we've had to take a back step and we've just got to get them accelerated and moving forward again. So I agree that, you know, we really have to pay attention to the kids who are really struggling and make sure that it's accessible to them. You're right, you're all right, that reading and writing and math are all so important for a child and a student.
Susan, do we have, I saw in one of the handouts that we received about family engagement. And do we do, I know you have activities at night, but do you have activities to specifically talk about reading and teaching parents how to help their students, how to help their children with reading? I mean, at one time, I remember Deb West doing this at night, and she
Yeah.
had some kind of program, and she
Yeah.
was helping parents with reading. Do we do any of that now?
We've always had that until COVID hit in 2020 and we went out. So we were engaging parents though through the use of technology. You know, oftentimes they were paying attention to their child being instructed, or the teacher or, you know, principal or support staff would talk to the parent on Zoom. But you're right, we have to get back to that. That was really important work.
Thank you, Susan. And I like to see the goals. What are our goals for this year? And even for the board should have goals too, measurable goals, not a rigorous curriculum. It should be measurable goals that we have.
Well, I have my goals ready for you, so I will be sending them out.
We've got a retreat coming up, and that's where we're gonna be setting our goals as well. So Beverly asked for the information about the percentage of monies. Maybe that could be thrown into the board notes so that all of us can have access to that, because I think that's pretty interesting. Thanks for those good questions, Beverly. Rita.
Yes, so I would really like to hear from the staff, the teachers, the interventionists. It's one thing to have administrators present this material, but I would like to be able to ask teachers questions. You know, the ones that are really in the trenches doing the work with the students and asking them what they foresee would help increase these scores and help our students to be able to read on grade level and above grade level. So when you bring back the teachers, you know, when the teachers come back and we address this topic again in the fall, hopefully we'll be able to hear from staff, not just principals, but actually the people that are in the classroom helping the students. I want to find out what type of resources they need for the, you know, what type of funding, and definitely in the fall before we do our budget. That's it. And our goal should be, I mean, 10%, you know, across the board, at least everything should be going up. Thank you. That's it.
And I think it'll help for you to see what the state expectations are as well. So we can move on to grade 2. Now here you're seeing where we actually have students who happen to be with us in kindergarten when we went down and shut down in March 2020.
Yep. So this is students who are currently grade 2 students. They were kindergartners during the year of the pandemic. Remember, again, it's a moving target. So these students were at 57.5% were on grade level. This is trimester 2, so this is right in the spring. A lot of them took this test in February, and then obviously we went under quarantine in March. This is right before the pandemic happened. That group was roughly, you know, very close, 57.5 again. We're still on grade level, even though that expectation had increased several years later. But we had less students who were close to grade level, kind of that approaching category. We did have almost 30% of students who were significantly below grade level. Those numbers did improve at the end of the year. Just over 62% of students were at or above. Another almost 11% were just one level below. So we do see with this group of students that there overall is some growth from prior to the pandemic, with over 57.5% over 62% are at or above grade level. Although we did see an increase in the total number of students who were significantly below grade level, so more than one level below. But this is certainly, you know, we can attribute some of this to the impact of COVID. These were kindergartners who went fully remote for most of the end of that first kindergarten year, and a lot of their first grade year, they were remote.
Before I recognize Beverly, does Andrea or Dean? No. Okay.
I had questions before.
I didn't see your hand in there.
That's okay. You can't see everything.
Do you still have questions?
It'll apply to everything. So if you can go through the grades at the end.
Okay. All right. Bev.
I just have a comment that, Tom, you're calling it growth. I'm not calling it growth. I think these scores are still horrible. And that's all I have to say.
I think what he means, Beverly, by growth is in kindergarten, at that time of year, a child is reading at an ABC level. In second grade, in term 2, they're at a level of KLM. And in third grade, so in other words, the text complexity that they're reading independently is so much greater. The questions we're asking, so it's not like they're not reading better. And we certainly have more kids reading at grade level. Are we satisfied that 27% at the end of second grade still we're struggling and we're not near the measured growth? No, we're not satisfied. And so the principals have the data and they know every single child, and what their performance looks like over time. And we'll be, working together with teachers and interventionists to make sure that kids have the support systems that they need going into 3rd grade. So that's just an explanation of why we call that more kids making the goal at a higher level.
All right, thank you.
But we're discussing 3rd grade right now, I thought.
Now this is second, we'll get to 3rd
We're
next.
still on 2nd. Okay.
We'll move.
We can move. So this is our 3rd grade. So again, they were grade 1 when the pandemic struck. So at that point, 71% of students were on grade level. Just over 7% were approaching, so one kind of band or a level below, and about just over 21% were significantly below. We did see some growth from T2 to T3, but again, this is overall a decline from prior to the pandemic. 60.5% of students were at above grade level. Just over 11% are approaching, so one band below, and just over 28% are more than one level below where their target should be.
And Matthew, when you said, would the expectation be 75% near or at goal? This is an example of, yes, that was happening prior to COVID in this 1st grade group. So we would like to see 75% of the kids at goal, and we'll get them back there. But it does take, a pandemic set in, and it does take some time to do that work. And this has been one solid year that we've had them full in person with a lot of chronic absenteeism, because a lot of our children suffered COVID. They were out for the illness, and then they were out being quarantined. So they were missing some school. So coming back next year, hopefully the attendance will be better and we'll be able to move them forward even better.
May I respond?
Sure.
With the limited number of times I've been in the schools, what I've seen has been really very impressive. The teachers have been working well with the kids. I'm making a judgment. Sorry about that. It's a personal judgment. The kids have seemed very engaged at whatever grade level I observed. So what follows is not a criticism. It's just I don't know exactly what it is. You can characterize it. Here's an analogy that may not work. If you and I are both driving from here to Boston or New York, and I'm off 1 degree, it's not much at a mile out or 2 miles out. But the 2nd year and the 3rd year and the 4th year, even though it's just a degree or two, the distance between the ones who are heading straight to the goal in proficiency and those who are off track can get to be mighty large. And my only desire is, how can are there ways we can do course adjustments that can make a significant difference? Can we, it's the administrator's job to make the choices of how to do things. I get it. But is there a way we can access and tap into the teachers' ideas of what resources in a perfect world, which we don't live in, they would find useful, that would allow you and us to make whatever budget adjustments we need to make so that we can, a third of our kids being below grade level at 5th grade, more than a third, 45% below grade level at 5th grade, that's scary. And I don't know what we can do, but that's what I'm looking for and I think that's what many of us are looking for. What can we do on a structural basis that will reverse this trend? I'm sorry. Thank you.
So 4th grade, as you can see, just over 65% were at grade level before the pandemic. They were in grade 2 at the time. In trimester 2, so 2 years later, they were at 53%. We did see growth from T2 to T3. But again, it is not on par with before the pandemic. Not as large of a drop as grade 3 currently, but just under 64% of students are at grade level, and over 24% of students are significantly below. And then for grade 5, so this group, this cohort, or rough cohort, was in grade 3 prior to the pandemic. They were at just under 57% were at grade level, 30%, just over 31% were significantly below grade level. And at the end of this year, just over 54% were at or above grade level, and 33% just above or significantly below.
Liz,
Just, this group is gonna be going, is the entering middle school.
That is correct.
And, all right, so, that's gonna be quite a challenge for those kids. And I'm glad that we have the support systems up at the middle school that I know of that are reading supports. And, I have hope. I'm just saying I have hope. But that, you know, this is just the evidence the pandemic was very debilitating. And my own grandson's going into 6th grade this year, and I see definite things where, yeah, there are gaps, but it's at least we're acknowledging and we're trying to find the ways to help our kids. And I have hope. I just want to say that.
And this particular group is of concern. And it's one of the things that's important in this district is that this data gets passed on. And Tom has been instrumental in helping us secure our longitudinal data and make sure that we have a platform that's very accessible to teachers so that they can retrieve this data and that we can pass it on from year to year so that those students one at a time, those starfishes one at a time, teachers know about ahead of time and will be able to, you know, take this information and help support children in their core classroom. And then for the additional, as Liz had said, at the middle school, the model is that the literacy teacher and the math teacher teach their own children support. So they have an additional 42 minutes every other day, knowing the kids to be able to support them. And kids in tier 3 have the reading specialist or math specialist working with them. So, and they've got that time carved out beyond the core. So they don't miss any core instruction. And the same thing is true in elementary, but they get this additional instruction during the school day and then beyond the school day if needed.
I'm going to recognize Dean and then you, Beverly.
My father worked for a publishing company. He was a salesman. So the result was we got a lot of books growing up, and he spent a lot of time trying to find places to put the books. That's an extraordinary situation. But years ago, before we had kids, my wife and I would go to open houses. You know, I think we've all done this to go see somebody else's house. And she and I noticed something. We were struck by the absence in a great number of houses of bookcases, or there may have been a bookcase with 5 novels in it or something like that. The rest was sort of for decor or knickknacks that people had collected. I don't expect people would have my bookcases or my father's bookcases. Again, it's extraordinary. But there seems to be, and it has been for many years, I don't know if it's a decline or a lack of development. I don't know whether it's peculiar to this country or just the developed world, or I don't know. But for a great number of years, people have been wondering, why don't we read? Not just the kids, why don't we read? When I was in high school, I had a month and a half at a market research firm. I just tallied the ones and zeros. And one of the surveys that had been done, don't ask me about the quality of the survey, was how many books does the average American read in a year? It was less than 1. That was the average. Take that for whatever it's worth. Some teachers that I've known that work at the elementary level say you can tell when kids arrive at school for the first time in kindergarten, who's already been exposed to books, who has books at home, who may have been read to. There are kids that arrive at kindergarten not even knowing which way to hold the book. The pictures may be orient them, but they've never seen the words before. Some kids are more precocious than others. They're not all the same. But what you're fighting with a lot of this, especially the earlier grades, is if there's reading, there isn't any reading at home. The school is having to do a lot of catch up. And it's especially debilitating for kids who may not be precocious readers. There are kids who are just self-starters. They're gonna, no matter what's going on at home, they're gonna handle it. They're gonna overcome. But most kids need to see somebody reading at home. They have to have this exposure so they're ready to come. This is when you start to see these spreads. And Beverly's correct. This has been going on for a lot of years. Maybe not these particular numbers. And we're going back to COVID. But I suspect we've seen numbers like this pre-COVID. I don't expect to see everybody in the green. You're going to have some sort of a bell curve. Some kids, even if you cut out the special needs kids, for example, you're going to see a bell curve. When I was in 4th grade, teacher gave me Born Free to see if I could read it. And I remember that to this day. It didn't put me off of reading, but I cried over that book. I just couldn't get through it. So that was a bridge too far for me. So that's my comment on, I think, where all this is starting. You're really fighting against a lack of preparation, if you will, from the home, from where the kids come from. Some are just better prepared than others, and some, yes, have native talent. I would, going from grade to grade, I should think grade to grade, but level to level, when we go from the A, B, we letter them. I know that's meant to be get us as close as possible to a quantitative understanding, where is the kid? I wouldn't marry that. It's an overused word for me anyway, because unless your instruction and your materials are, unless the complexity grows at a steady rate, it isn't true that one level above another level is 2 levels above the level before that one, that kind of thing. It's approximate. So I don't get too overworked with comparing one grade necessarily with another grade in terms of percentages. A trend within a grade, or a trend maybe over years, that may be more useful. But yeah, if this is what they're doing by grade 5, this is without regard to how it's happening. We have 50%, maybe better than 50%, going into middle school, ready to read, and the others still struggling with it. That's a huge chunk of kids. And middle school can't very well let them alone and say, well, the laggards will catch up somehow. But most of the class, barely most of the class is at reading level when they go in the 6th grade. And a huge plurality are not ready to handle the material that they should be handling in middle school. So if they don't get the training, if they don't catch up, then what happens? Do we, for lack of a better term and a more elegant term, dumb down the middle school curriculum so that a huge chunk of the kids can actually keep up? What happens to them? What's happening in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade? Are we graduating? How many people do we graduate from high school that are barely literate? I don't mean have they enjoyed War and Peace, but are actually barely literate. I've met adults, people from my generation, that are barely literate. This has been going on a long time. I just don't know what the answer is. I'm in favor of applying resources, but I'm also wondering whether it's sort of an uphill or a downhill, or I don't know what yet. I probably never will figure it out, but it ain't good. It ain't good.
Well, one of the things I look forward to sharing with you is the SBAC data. And while it hasn't been made public, we're expecting it in a couple of weeks to be made public. So to take that data, which is, based on Connecticut core standards, and, look at it through that lens of literacy, reading and writing, to see what does that story tell us too? Is it as dismal as this, or is it even better? I don't know. So.
Beverly?
Thank you, Kim.
Absolutely.
Susan, with a little less than half of our 5th graders reading, is that below grade level? I'm wondering, with your new MYP program in the middle school, how's that going to affect these students that are reading below grade level? Because the MYP program is supposed to be a rigorous program. And if they're struggling reading, how are you going to help these students be successful in middle school? It goes along with, I guess, with what Dean's saying also.
Yeah. These are really thoughtful questions, guys.
They are very thoughtful. One of the things I've seen with the MYP and the reading that's happening in the middle school is that kids are enjoying reading more. They're reading more books. They're getting more instruction in reading. And, you know, there is a rigor to the level of questions that are being asked of them and they're talking about when they're reading these different books. They're reading some books that they choose to read. That really engages them. They have some books that the teacher chooses and, you know, and reads with them. So I would say that definitely, you know, if our students are very smart kids, I just have to say this. And while you have the majority of them almost there, and there's a section of kids that definitely need that big additional support. We need to accelerate learning. We need to give them that extra support beyond the core, but we expect them to be in that classroom with that rigor, with that relevance, with that excitement for reading and writing. You know, I see that when I walk through these classrooms, especially by 8th grade. And I know Amy McKenna, seeing the program in literacy 6 through 12, is really looking to have that, you know, same kind of thinking all the way through, and that same kind of work that students are doing to understand and interpret what they read. Because it's the amount of reading that they're doing, as Dean had suggested. You know, we really want them reading lots of books, and we want them interpreting and understanding author's purpose and being able to debate and show evidence to their thinking. So that will continue to happen, but those students that you see in the red will need some additional support, and it will happen from their ELA teacher or a reading consultant type, you know, specialist who's highly certified in the area of reading.
So you're telling us
Special
that,
education.
so you're telling us that in the 6th and 7th grade, that these numbers, these percentages in yellow and red should be decreasing because the program in the middle school, the reading program is so rigorous and so forth and so on?
And the support they're getting. Really what my goal is that green area grows with any students who's in Groton over time. And they get better and better at it. Even though the work gets more challenging, we want to see kids really reading a lot, you know, at an independent level, being instructed at a higher level, and be able to be really thoughtful about what they've read and understand what they've read.
Okay,
So
so
that would be the goal.
so the goal is that those numbers, those percentages in red and yellow would be decreasing in the middle school year because the program is so rigorous and the reading is at a higher level. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, all the way through from
Okay,
pre-K, you know, so the elementary curriculum that we have by design, and then also middle school and into the high school.
all right, I'm gonna be looking at that, Susan.
I will be too, Beverly. You bet.
I'm gonna recognize Matthew.
Tom, would it be possible to have grade 6 through 12 broken out with an F&P score or some parallel instrument? Is there some way we can, I'm really, the comment that Dean made was I think right on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to know where we are, and the data here, the only grade that seems to have really improved over time to get back to where they were before was grade 4.
Yep, we saw that too, Matthew.
We do only administer the F&P currently up to grade 5. That being said, we do have the SBAC, which does, you know, it's not the same assessment, I want to be clear, but it does provide us a window into the student's reading ability, especially comprehension wise. That is something we administer through the high school. We also have SAT data. As Susan alluded to, we expect that data to be released publicly within the next 2 weeks, and we're happy to come and share that with you.
And we have the Lexia Rapid,
Yes, we
which
also
is
have
3
Lexia
times a year.
Yep.
And so I know Tom's working on that so
Yep.
that we can take, it looks at Lexiles, not these A through Zs, but there's still a measure of what kids can read independently versus what they can read
Yep.
with instruction.
The SPEC scores, oh, sorry. Matthew, I was just gonna, the SPEC scores also currently do a projected Lexile. This will be the last year that they do that. But they do give a projected Lexile score as well. So we can roughly track the students' Lexile growth over time.
Yeah, if it is possible, and it may not be possible, to be able to graph this, having the different grades as different color lines and tracking how we're hopefully the graph is rising. There's not a criticism, it's just a worry. And I think it's good that we're worried about our kids.
That's right.
No, absolutely. Matthew, I can tell you, we're working now. I'm working with both the the elementary, middle, and high school. We want to have one longitudinal tracking system where basically we can track a kid's progress from kindergarten through 12th grade. And that any administrator, can pop in at 9th grade and see what has this kid done over from K to 8 and see where this kid is a snapshot. So that way we're not playing catch up at the start of 9th grade. We're not playing catch up at the start of 6th grade. We know exactly where this kid is and we can intervene right away. So, I'm meeting with a representative from each level next week. We're hoping to commit to a system and build this together. So we're making progress, but to your point, we need to be able to see the growth over time.
I'm very excited to hear you say that. I think that will be a most useful tool for everybody.
Rita, before I recognize you, I'm going to recognize Andrea in that she has not spoken during this round.
Do you want to take down the graphs so you can see each other?
Well, actually,
Oh,
Never
sorry.
mind.
Sorry.
no, you can leave them down. My question really is about how the test is, who writes the test? In other words, we don't have a national curriculum. So maybe I'll give you an example of an experience that I had at the academy. I was helping a first year, which is a senior, prepare for the GRI. And I'll have to tell you that the logic that you had to use to get the answer was something that was not in the scope of anything that they had prepared this young man for. And for example, if you haven't read Don Quixote, you don't know what quixotic means. So who makes these, given that we don't have a national curriculum, where do the questions come from? Maybe they have nothing to do with what the kids have studied.
I would say that with Irene Fontes and Gay-Sue Pinnell, they have studied literacy and are literacy experts for years and years and worked with lots of teachers in crafting the questions. When you look at those little charts for parents, you can see the types of questions that are being asked, and they do relate to the story, but they could relate to multiple stories actually. And then the answers that are that we're receiving from children, there's some flexibility in that. There's not just one answer. There could be multiple answers, and that's really given to the teacher ahead of time. And then they've written the continuum of learning, which is this wonderful document that really goes back to at that level, instructionally, at that level, independently, here are some instructional tools and some ways to teach the child so that they can make improvement.
So in other words, if the teachers have access, not to the test that they're giving this year, but access to maybe prior tests to see what the thinking is.
Yeah, and they do these running records all the time too, in a very casual with any of the books that the children are using. So our teachers are highly trained in how to assess the child's decoding skills and their comprehension with the questions that they ask. So it's really important that our teachers working with the child every day know how to do this.
So when the teachers are interacting with the children, they're using the kind of thinking that you need to have to answer this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the instruction that in the mini lesson, the teachers are instructing that way too. And then they're off you go, and they listen to them read, and they observe.
Then why the scores? That's not making sense.
But you got to remember they've been 2 years, and as Dean
Yeah,
very eloquently said, when they're at home and we don't have them full-time in school learning, we have these beautiful libraries in their classrooms, in their schools.
But Dean also said
And
that this
they
is
might be home without a lot of books.
right. And Dean also said though that this is a continuing trend. It goes prior trend.
Could you speak a little louder, Andrea? I can't hear you.
Dean also said that this is a continuing a trend. Because it's prior to to COVID.
I don't think this just happened.
Right,
No.
exactly, yeah. That's right.
I would agree.
Okay.
Rita,
Well, I had some other comments, but I was going to ask if we could move along our meeting and postpone the Alliance track graffiti to another COW and move on to topic 6 so we could then have our executive session. I don't think we should be spending, it's already 7 o'clock and we were supposed to go into executive session at 7.
So I really wrote about it in board notes anyway, Rita.
Right,
And
I have
I
it
gave
here.
you all
Yeah.
a little sheet. So if you wanted to discuss it further at another meeting, but that's what we
Yeah.
have so far. I'm hoping for more for you in 2
Yeah.
weeks.
That I think we should
I'm
should
gonna-
postpone this.
I would have to do both. Right,
So,
Dean, what were you
yeah,
gonna say?
no, I should have asked this before, and I don't think there's an answer here, and that is, I am aware, even though I am not a teacher, I am aware that over many years, there have been competing schools of thought with respect to how to teach reading. I can recall phrases like whole language, like of the word phonetics. There have been battles. And unlike cosmological theories, which were kind of settled with the discovery of the background radiation, these debates go on. We are, I think, living in an era in which one of these schools of thought is dominant. I don't know what's going on, how reading has been being taught in schools, so I profess my ignorance in that respect. Could we be looking at a situation where the method that we're using to teach kids how to read has run up against certain barriers, and maybe we should reconsider, again, I don't expect an answer tonight, we should reconsider how we teach kids to read. Maybe it's not the right way after all. Maybe it's not as effective, or maybe it's not as effective with our children. Just throwing it out there.
If
But I am
can-
aware that there are differing schools of thought on how to teach kids to read.
If I can just, in a sentence or two, when
Speak
I
loud.
learned to read, we were in the whole word method of teaching, and that has stayed with me for my life. I still buy books and never read them because of the way I learned to read. So you're very correct.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how long it's been going on, but I know that this is probably different. Yeah. Cool.
We have a motion on the floor from Rita to move number 4 to another COW or another discussion time. And
Second.
Matthew, did you say second?
I did indeed.
Okay, sorry, sir, didn't quite hear you. Is there any discussion about that? Okay, all those in favor of moving the number 4 to a different committee of the whole, please say aye. Aye. All
I
right, oppose, abstain. We have moved that forward. Okay, thank you. And suggested future topics, which was we have not moved. I just want to let you know that what I've gathered from this conversation that we just had, it's so nice to finally talk about data, and it's so nice to talk about learning, and it's so nice to talk about all that stuff, is that Susan and I could come up with a plan on, and maybe start with the middle school, because we all identified grade 5 as something that was concerning, to have the middle school staff come in first to kind of talk about their improvement plan. What are they working on? What are they seeing? What are they not seeing? Does that make sense, folks? And then just kind of march through. The good news is that we're down to a smaller population. So the days where Beverly and Rita and I were sitting in the 9-hour meetings listening to really good information, but it was very long and very dense. We don't have as many schools that we can kind of do that, but we'll start off on that middle school so that we can capture the 5th grade. Does that sound like that makes?
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, and to Rita, to your point, maybe some teachers can be identified to kind of come in with the administration to talk about that. It's been a long time since we've seen the teachers, so you're right, it would be nice.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Matthew.
In January and again in April, I mentioned mentoring, tutoring. Rita threw in the idea of homework clubs. I would love to have an update on that, particularly since in the last 4 weeks, the White House has issued a new program with funding, believe it or not, to get 250,000 volunteers across the country to do math and reading, because they finally have the data sets that are showing what the effects of the coronavirus has been on education. I'm particularly concerned because we hope that the virus is over, but if it's not, we're going to have to pedal very hard. This program provides access to what in my day was called Vista. I forget the new name, with volunteers, and they will allow use of ESSER funds or ESSER funds to be used as the matching funds. So we don't even have to come up with matching funds from our budget. We can have the entire thing paid for. I'd like to put that on the agenda to share that again, learn about what progress we're making on mentoring, tutoring, homework clubs, and any other great ideas the other colleagues have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Beverly?
Are you on suggested future topics?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Okay. So I've been watching a lot of the town council meetings, and a lot of the people have been coming up and talking about Brantford Manor. I'd like to know, how many students do we have from Brantford Manor, and how does mold affect our children? And maybe Susan, you can get back to us on that, because they're complaining about mold and asthma and all that stuff. So I want to get a hold of how many students do we have from Brantford Manor, and how is this affecting our kids educationally?
Well, and I'm kind of curious what Ledgelight Health has done. So that's something that I can even pick up the phone and give them a call to see what data they have on that. Beverly.
Beverly, just to qualify that, are you asking like how many sick days students from Brantford Manor take versus students who aren't?
Well, you can give me that information too. I wasn't really.
You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of how we
Yeah.
can discern that.
How
for you,
would we
maybe.
quantify?
Yeah,
Except that the health department would have to share some evidence that they have too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We can think
And
about
if mold affects them, if mold affects their learning.
So that, I mean,
That might be a hurdle.
Beverly, I love your question. And I think that what you're getting at, but I'm not quite sure how to narrow that scope, because that would take a lot of research in terms of medical information about finding out what mold does, sick leave, and then you would have to have someone evaluate whether it's a respiratory issue, and also what is the research for mold. And so I don't want to overcomplicate it, but I'm not quite sure how to get that information in a way that makes sense about that.
Let me start with Ledgelight Health and ask some questions, Beverly, around that. And then Tom and I will look at some of the attendance data.
Okay, that'd be a good start. Thank you, Susan.
Okay.
Yeah, Beverly, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want to make sure that your question gets answered. All right, so any other future agenda topics? All right, hearing none, we're going to be moving. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the interview process for our next candidate. We have we have 5 candidates so far. Our end date is August 12th, so it could be 5+, but at the present moment we have 5. I have today I amassed the resumes in their cover letters, and I will get Joyce to send them out to you so that you will have that ahead of time. What I'm thinking is, since it's 5 is somewhat of a manageable number, and that maybe we could spend a night where we can just kind of interview the candidates, either in a hybrid version, in a Zoom version, what have you, but just to kind of get to know them. But I'm thinking that we should have 5 or 6 questions that we ask each one, which is a normal interview process. And so I'm not quite sure how you guys want to have that done, whether you guys want to just send me your questions and then I will put them out, what we have. And that maybe we can quickly look at them at the next committee of the whole for quick agenda items to say, yeah, I like this question, I don't like that question. Yes, let's go ahead with that question. Does that make sense?
Do you have to go into executive session for figuring out the questions?
I don't think so. No, because that's not an executive session.
Okay.
No. Does that make sense, folks?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm asking is that if you guys could send me some ideas for questions. I just want to make sure that we ask.
Or send questions.
Send questions. All right. Any other questions about that? All right.
What's the
Rita.
next part, Kim, in terms of when the interviews would take place?
So thank you. That would be that I might have an answer for that. So I think when I think Joyce is going to be contacting all of us, looking for some dates and times for availability. One, for availability for the interview so that we can get that done, so we can get a board member on and in seat as we start the school year. And the other would be to find a time where we can meet together and on a retreat to go over our board, to develop our board goals and our mission statement, which is what came out of our conversations from last night, not last night, last Monday when we did the superintendent, and then also when we did our self-eval. So that's what you should be hearing very soon, is hopefully Joyce will be helping me out. She did say she was going to.
Yeah, she's already started working on it.
She's good. Matthew.
Two questions. Are you thinking that for question A, we'll listen to the candidate respond to question A, and then we will rank our personal feelings on that person's response on a Likert scale, and or in the so we can score it and come try to see what consensus we have, and or do we want to do voting on a ranked voting basis with 5 candidates and only 8 sitting members now? It's going to be, it may be 8 in favor of one person. It may be scattered all over the place, and ranked voting would help come up with consensus, I think. But did the board like to discuss that?
That's an interesting thought, Matthew. Thank you. Do people have thoughts about that? I just kind of figured we would interview and then kind of come up with after they left, have a conversation about each of the candidates, or one that we felt like made a lot of sense. We would then come back. Can we have that in the executive session? I think we can, because it's personnel. No.
Not personnel.
Is it a non-meeting?
If you don't have a quorum. Or if you-
But negotiations
Well, you know
is
what
there.
you could do? Tell you what. I won't be part of the meeting. You Democrats can meet. It's a caucus. But that means me and Andrea and
Jay.
Okay.
so 5 of you could meet.
No.
theoretically.
No, that doesn't work.
I mean,
No.
it's one option.
No.
No.
So I will, so do people want a Likert scale?
I think we should just do it the way we hire people. We don't do it with the light scale.
So yeah, I don't know if you could hear Andrea, but she kind of said that she kind of likes the idea of just having a discussion.
Me too.
Me too.
Me too. That's what I like.
Okay, thank you, Beth. So it looks like we're mostly moved towards that, but Matthew, I had never even thought about that end, and I once again appreciate you picking something up that had fell off the platter. All right.
What about our final voting?
So we would have to have a motion. It would have to be, I'll set up the agenda, Matthew. It would kind of say that we would interview candidates and that the board anticipated would have a vote on that matter. It would be a special meeting anyways, right? I'm looking at Dean, who I sort of have now deemed our parliamentarian.
Too long of a word. But, yeah, no, you can do what you like. That's my rule.
Okay. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Kim, can I make a suggestion that we give the candidates, we plan out 10 or 15 minutes, however long we'd like to do. I mean, I wouldn't ask too many questions. I believe they need to write an essay about why they want to be on the Board of Education that we'll have all read ahead of time. But I would like to have our discussion right after we hear from the candidates.
Absolutely.
The same
meeting. that same meeting, absolutely. Interview with the candidates with an anticipated vote after,
Right.
after that,
And
absolutely.
they all get the same questions and they all get the same amount of time.
Absolutely, ma'am, absolutely. And they all have been asked to write a letter of intent, which I
I've-
think serves
Yeah,
as. their
I've read those, yeah, but it's a little different than really talking about, you know, what are their backgrounds and why they want to become a Groton Board of Education member. I don't know, the intent is a little different to me. But that's just, or we could give them actually an essay to write on, you know, a topic.
That,
Can I,
Liz,
this is fulfilling a position of a vacancy that would normally be elected. If it's not like a job, it is a job, but it's not. I really think that would be excessive. I didn't have to write a letter of why I wanted to be a board member. I just went to the Democratic Town Committee meeting and said, I want to go and be a candidate for this. And I had to tell them why. And I said, okay, I think that's all basically we should require is it's just because I just think it would be too much. I just don't think it's right. It's like none of us had to sit there and do something like that. Why would we expect somebody that has to, well,
I had to write something, I thought.
did you?
Yeah, I did.
A letter of
And then I was
intent?
interviewed.
Well, I had to
Well,
say
letter of
why.
intent was-
Yeah, I had to write
have it
something.
someplace. I have it someplace. I had to write something. I had to.
for the Republican Town Committee, not for us.
No, not for them.
You didn't write it for
No,
us.
because I was
did
the
you?
only idiot who was willing to fill the vacancy. So it was easy choice for them. I didn't have to convince them. So
I don't
but-
remember
but-
writing.
But there was a two-step for this, for you guys.
Oh,
But
really?
I could be wrong.
See, I don't know because
Beverly, what are your thoughts?
Okay, as far as what Liz is saying, I think sometimes the town committees don't ask you to write anything because they just have enough people to run for that office. So they're glad to have whoever they have and let the
That's true.
voters decide.
True.
So my other thought is, let's not complicate it. Let's keep it
Yeah.
simple. I always believe in simple. Simple is better. Let's not complicate it. It's too much.
So can you clarify what is simple for you? Just coming and showing up, answering questions?
Right, just, everybody's gonna submit their questions. You're gonna pick 6 of the questions. They show up, we already have their cover letters or whatever you wanna call whatever they sent us, why they wanna be a board member, why they wanna, you can ask that question if you want to. I always hate when you go on an interview and they ask you questions that was on your resume already. Why you asking me that question? I already said it on my resume, and now you want me to regurgitate it, you know? Ask questions that are different than what they already told us, you know?
Okay.
So,
Do you
and that's
guys,
what I'm saying.
and Beverly, I am 100% on board with you. Sorry, Rita, I love your idea, but it just feels like that would be a very cumbersome and it would elongate the process, but I love the idea. I am going to keep it simple, silly, using the KISS and her phrase,
simple.
silly. And I will ask that you guys give the questions to me. I will choose 6 or 7 to make sure that we got it. And then Joyce will be calling you for times. And also she will be making sure that you guys get all the information that was sent to me. And if anything else happens before the 12th, someone else comes with information, I'll make sure that you guys get that as well. All right.
Can I make another suggestion?
Yes.
There are 5, in August, there are 5 Mondays. It's
Yeah.
possible that we could have it on the 29th, rather than have Joyce send out all that and go through all that. I mean, couldn't we just have a little vote, like ask people, are they available then?
Oh, I love the fact that you're thinking. Thank you, Rita. Thank you.
29th works for me.
Yeah, no,
It's a
'cause
Monday.
Yep, thank you.
Or like the 6th, which is after Labor Day,
Thank you.
if that might be better.
Rita's always thinking.
Yeah.
Always has.
I appreciate that. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. I will take a motion for adjournment.
Oh, so we're not gonna have a little open talk, conversation about a date? Rather than have Joyce go through all that?
I think August 29th is fine, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna send that out. We're also relying on the fact that we have the 5+ possibly
Right.
candidates to do that. So the 29th looks like a very good idea, and quite frankly, if we can't get candidates, I might want to steal it for us to have a retreat. So,
Yeah.
so stay tuned. So what I'm saying is that your thought process is, thank you for looking at the calendar. It makes a lot of sense to go ahead, look ahead for the moment. All right, so yes, the 29th makes sense. And so it either will be for the interviews and vote, or it could be the start of a retreat. I don't know, but it's a good idea. That was a discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor of a motion for adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstain? Okay, motion is carried. This meeting is been canceled. It has ended at 7:20.
And I'd just like to thank Tom for his good work and your support in having a student data manager, because he certainly helped with us being able to see clearly.